Hi, my name is Carl Pearson, and I'm creating this video to explain why the country needs to provide financial relief to the United States Postal Service, that's USPS, a governmental agency self-financed with postal revenues. Actually, it's a quasi-governmental agency. I'm 83 years old, a practicing foreclosure defense attorney in the heart of New York, New York, a high school dropout. I received my BA magna cum laude in political science. I'm a graduate of Harvard Law School, and I've been a small business attorney for 74 years. Also, I ran on third-party tickets for New York Attorney General and New York City Mayor, and sought nomination in 2012 for U.S. President by the third largest political party. I say this because I want you to know that I have really an interest in the political nature of this country, as well as in small business, and I want to use both of them now to explain a very important thing that is going on that I see. Today is my 50th day of self-imposed quarantine or stay-at-home lockdown. The U.S. now has more than 1,180,000 confirmed cases and 68,000 deaths due to the coronavirus or COVID-19. And I am one of the most vulnerable persons and take quarantine quite seriously. The post office financing issue has been raised by President Trump, who through his veto power or otherwise can deprive the Postal Service of any public financing whatsoever, and his threat we have to take very, very seriously. I'm going to analyze this problem in 3 stages. The first stage is President Trump's motivations. 1. It is not to require increased postal rates because President Trump has been approving trillion-dollar bailouts of big business without requiring them to increase their prices. 2. The President seeks to make it more difficult to vote by mail, directly or as absentee voters, because he believes voters favoring Trump are more apt to show up at the polls than Democratic or independent voters if a vote by mail option is taken away. This is the most likely reason, since, as everyone knows, every major action by Trump is to try to get him reelected in 2020. 3. Here is a second most likely reason. Trump wants to privatize the USPS by forcing it through insolvency to sell its business to friends of Trump, who would then increase postal prices and stop serving the higher cost places, which are generally the rural areas, except at even much higher postal rates, and have really a monopoly in distribution of mail as a result, and the increased profitability and the increased concentration of the economy that would result. 4. The President is angry with Amazon's Jeff Bezos, the founder and controlling person, who recently purchased the Washington Post, which regularly publishes anti-Trump articles and believes that Amazon is unfairly profiting from too favorable postal rates for the hundreds of millions of packages mailed each year by Amazon. I will address that issue later in this video. 5. Trump wants to have voters and the media discussing this issue as a diversion, rather than discussing how Trump and his administration have failed to do the right things to limit the effect of the coronavirus. 6. Trump continually sends tweets which are designed to create controversy, and this is just one more such tweet. 7. Finally, Trump needs to pump up his base by challenging as many government agencies as possible. Now, I normally don't do this, but I have ranked these 6 motivations in their order from most important down to the least important, just so that you know that I have put some order in that. The second stage of analysis is whether Amazon is getting a sweetheart deal from the post office, as claimed by President Trump. 1. That is a July 13, 2017 Wall Street Journal article by Joshua Sandbolt, Sandbulte, co-CEO of a major shareholder of competitor Federal Express, claimed that the USPS was losing money with the package shipping rates it was charging to Amazon. This conflict of interest by Mr. Sandbolt was pointed out 3 days later by Fortune magazine. Amazon then pointed out that the Postal Regulatory Commission for the past 5 years had reviewed and approved the rates to Amazon. 2. I have looked into the issues, and they are complicated, and in no way comprehensible by President Trump, who doesn't read and won't listen to anything for more than a few seconds. And they are difficult to comprehend by the hundreds of persons who actually were looking into those issues from many competing standpoints. I've done the same thing, but to a much lesser extent. And I tell you, it is complicated. 3. The USPS has two basic functions. First, to deliver mail to anywhere in the country at the same cost to all users, thereby allowing rural residents to mail letters at the same price as a city resident, even though the USPS costs are significantly higher in rural areas. And second, to be self-supporting from the postal rates it is charging. 4. The coronavirus has caused a 50% decline in postal revenues in the second quarter of 2020. That is April, May, June. So we're in the second quarter now, and they've lost 50% of their revenues they're projecting this month. But 45% of the USPS costs are institutional, as they call it, which means overhead. Their overhead expenses continuing whether or not there is a decline in mailing and revenues. 30% of USPS revenues come from the shipping of packages. Also, I should add that 18% of the workforce of the USPS are veterans and 39% are minorities, and that the Postal Service is older than the nation itself and was founded by Benjamin Franklin in 1753. 5. Money is increasingly tight for most of the nation's residents because of the coronavirus, stay-at-home restrictions, and 32 million newly unemployed workers during the past 6 weeks, which really is about 60 million effectively unemployed at this time. There's no money anywhere. 6. If the USPS increased its prices to adjust to the loss of revenue to try to break even, users would mail even less. So the USPS is in a real predicament, threatening its very existence, and needs a federal bailout to survive and continue to serve the country as a whole at the same mailing cost for each, that is, relating to letters, not packages. 7. Years prior to the pandemic, with its overhead costs figured out, the USPS figured it could receive some extra revenue by agreeing to ship Amazon packages at lower prices. Amazon was doing much of the breakdown, sorting, palletizing, and shipment to the USPS distribution centers, thereby saving the USPS a lot of money, and the added costs were far less than the additional revenue. This is the deal that Federal Express, UPS, and the President are questioning, which the Postal Regulatory Commission has repeatedly approved. 8. It is even more complicated because in the long run, if the USPS business turned into mostly the servicing of Amazon, then the rates would be too low and the USPS could not survive without increasing its rates to Amazon. 9. Who can say now whether there will be enough money for persons to order non-essential items from Amazon, or whether Federal Express will increase or lower their rates, merge or one of the two, that is UPS or Federal Express, go out of business. It's all complicated. 10. It does seem, however, that the need for continuation of the USPS services is important at this time, at least through the pandemic, so that at least medicines can be mailed at lowest cost, and to accommodate the November 2020 elections and the states that allow voting by mail and absentee voting. Any thoughts of structural change of the USPS should wait until 2021. Also, we cannot make a snap judgment on such a complicated business issue, and probably should permit the USPS to continue its operations with the needed federal subsidy. Third, and which is the final stage of my analysis, some of the effects upon the public if Postal Service is denied the needed funding. 1. The USPS, truly an essential service during the pandemic, will have to file for bankruptcy and private enterprise rather than President Trump, Senator Mitch McConnell, or Congress will wind up taking control, and Amazon would probably be the purchaser and be able to extend its existing monopoly much, much further. As an aside, if this should happen, Amazon should extend a franking privilege for free mailing of ballots to offset Trump's plan to win re-election by depriving voters of ballot mailing rights. 2. 600,000 postal workers would lose their pensions, possibly. Federal employees are not funded and are using the same funding program. So I'm not sure that there would be a loss of pensions. That's a legal issue that I haven't explored, and I won't. It should be noted that Congress required the USPS to set aside $72 billion to fund its pension program. That the funding has not taken place. Congress has not funded the pensions of any other federal workers, and that without such funding obligation, the USPS has been operating profitably until now. 3. Many postal workers will lose their jobs. 4. Trump would have a better chance of winning the 2020 election. 5. Amazon would increase its monopoly and threaten the existence of Federal Express and/or UPS. 6. Federal Express and UPS would merge. 7. Postal rates would increase dramatically and service to rural areas would decline and/or become far more costly and cause a decrease in use. 8. Direct mailers in competition with Amazon would be injured. Well, I said what I planned to say, and I'll say so long until my next video.